So when you're looking at this, obviously not to get into a policy discussion, but if there were an increase of energy production in this country, do you feel like that would help drive down inflation?
Well, I think over time, more energy would mean lower energy prices. But we are very focused on what we call core inflation, because that is what is driven by, really by demand, and our tools are really aimed at demand.
Right, understood. But I feel like the cost of energy is not just what you pay at the pump. It ends up affecting every good across this great nation.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a powerful moment on Capitol Hill, where Senator Katie Britt from Alabama goes toe-to-toe with Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell in a heated exchange over something that's affecting every American household right now: inflation. From the very start, Britt's tone was serious. Not political theater, not talking points, just real frustration from someone who clearly understands what families are facing. She laid out the reality that across America, people aren't just feeling inflation in the numbers, they're living it every single day. Groceries are up, gas is up, rent is up, and families are being forced to make hard choices just to get by. When Senator Britt spoke, she wasn't talking about abstract economics. She was talking about moms at the checkout counter, dads picking up extra shifts, and families cutting corners to make ends meet. She pressed Chair Powell with a mix of data and real-world perspective, asking the questions so many Americans wish they could ask directly. Why did it take so long to act? Why are working families paying the price for Washington's decisions? And when can Americans expect some relief? Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Senator Britt, Alabama is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, it's great to have you here today. Over the past 2 years, we've seen the highest inflation of my lifetime, driving up costs for American families across the board. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, the annual inflation rate in 2021 was 7%, and in 2022, it was 6.5%. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the cost of food went up 10% in 2022. And the real effects of that is moms and dads across this nation that are working to put food on the table for their kids, for their babies, had a harder time doing that. This has devastated hardworking Americans, causing a kitchen table crisis in every corner of our country, as the price of food, energy, and housing have all skyrocketed. In response, the Federal Reserve has raised the Federal Reserve Fund rate more than 4 percentage points. Being far from transient, inflation has remained persistent, high, and well above the Fed's long-run goal of remaining under 2%. In the coming year, what factors and indicators are you paying attention to as you and the Federal Open Market Committee decide on whether to increase rates?
So I'd say a couple things to that. First, we're going to be looking at inflation in the three sectors that I mentioned: the goods sector, the housing sector, and then the broader service sector. And we need the inflation that's already underway in the goods sector to continue, and that's really important. In the housing sector, we just need the time to pass so that reported inflation comes down, and it's effectively in the pipeline as long as new leases are being signed at relatively small increases. So we'll be watching very, very carefully, though, at the larger service sector, which is 56% of consumer spending, and more than that of what's currently inflation. So that's one thing we'll be watching that very carefully. Also, we raised rates very quickly last year, and we know that monetary policy, tightening policy, has delayed effects. It takes a while for the full effects to be seen in economic activity and inflation. So we're watching carefully to see those effects come into play. So we're aware that we haven't seen the full effects yet, and we're taking that into account as we think about rate hikes.
So when you're looking at this, obviously not to get into a policy discussion, but if there were an increase of energy production in this country, do you feel like that would help drive down inflation?
Well, I think over time, more energy would mean lower energy prices. But we are very focused on what we call core inflation, because that is what is driven by, really by demand, and our tools are really aimed at demand.
Right, understood. But I feel like the cost of energy is not just what you pay at the pump. It ends up affecting every good across this great nation. Additionally, I'd like to ask you about labor participation. So when you look at the unemployment rate, and we've heard my colleagues discuss people having to be displaced in order for us to maybe get to the inflation rate that we would like as a nation, I'd like to focus on the labor participation rate. So right now it's 62.4%. If there were an increase in people coming back into the workforce, would that be a positive factor with regards to driving us down to the 2% rate that you would want to achieve?
I think that it would. I mean, remember those people coming into jobs.
Yes.
That would be great because the economy clearly wants more people than are currently working. Of course, those people would then spend more, so it wouldn't be a zero-sum game. But it would be great for the country and great for them if they were to come into the labor force.
Amen. I believe that increasing in capital requirements on financial institutions would have a chilling effect on the economy and the availability of financial services. And last week, I joined many of my colleagues in sending you a letter that expressed concerns that if the Federal Reserve decides to conduct a, quote, holistic review of capital standards, as we heard Senator Scott talk about earlier. So is the Federal Reserve concerned that the impact to the economy of increasing capital requirements on financial institutions at a time when inflation remains persistently high would cause an issue?
So I think it's always a balance. We know that higher capital makes banks safer and sounder. We also know that you will, at the margin, provide less credit the more capital you have to have. But I think it's never exactly clear that you're at the perfect equilibrium, and it's a fair question, I think, to look at that.
And I know out of respect for the chairman and trying to stay in my time, I will just end by saying I heard what you said. Obviously, as you have said, the Federal Reserve is not and will not be a climate policymaker. I just want to thank you for your public statement on that. I agree with you that there's a difference between policymakers and financial regulators.
What made this exchange so striking was Britt's balance. Firm but respectful, sharp but composed. She showed that holding leaders accountable doesn't mean shouting them down. It means demanding real answers in the name of the people you represent. This wasn't just another Senate hearing clip. This was a moment of leadership. A reminder that behind every economic policy are real people, real families, feeling the impact. And Senator Britt made sure that message was heard loud and clear. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more clips that bring you the real stories from Capitol Hill, without the spin. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.